Thanks, everybody. We're here on the application of 728 Randolph Ave, 40B application. A little bit unclear as to what our agenda is going to be tonight, but just to recap our last meeting, there had been some discussion about postponing this hearing until after the town meeting that's planned for sometime in December. The idea being that the results of that town meeting may change the application's access to the project and some of the other design elements of the project. Mr. Freeman, is that correct?
Yes, it is correct. For the record, Peter Freeman representing the applicant. And after that zoning hearing, as the chairman said, where this question was discussed, I did talk to my client, Rob Celeberti, and he's on the Zoom this evening. And we have agreed to postpone or continue this hearing, so no need to go forward substantively or in any way tonight, other than to schedule a hearing for as soon as possible after these town meeting date, which I apologize. I believe it's within the first 2 weeks of December, but I forgot to confirm with Tim Cherwinski. And so my thought is, and just for the record, I will say that the agreement to postpone or continue to see what happens with town meeting, my client does that with full reservation of all of his rights under the present application, which I know you know, but just for the record. And so what my suggestion would be is that we find a date in December, and it may be just a placeholder. It may just have to be announced that, you know, it's continued until January, but that we set two dates, one in December after the town meeting, and to just discuss what happened. And then if the access is voted positively, affirmatively, then even if we submit some preliminary revised plans before the December hearing date, we would presumably work on them and submit more detailed plans in January. So my suggestion is to set two dates right now and announce them, one in December and one in January. And if anything needs to be changed in terms of a second date when we do meet, even if it's briefly in December, we could do that. So I think that correctly states where my client is at.
All right, so before we get to that, a couple of things. So Tim Cherwinski emailed me letting me know that he wasn't going to be able to make it, but also asking me to make clear that the following, basically this is what he says. The town is not considering making the access road a public way at this time. The procedure necessary for that doesn't meet the special town meeting timeline. It's something that might be considered in the future, though. So that's something that the applicant should be aware of, I think. Mr. Chewinski also asked to hear if the applicant has any intentions on improving the road as it currently exists, because I think that's important to the application and to probably the subject of the town meeting's consideration. And then I want to open up the idea of using that road to the rest of the board and to the public before we go any further down this proverbial road. So, Mr. Freeman, if I may pose that first question to you before opening up to everybody else, do you have at least a concept for improving that road if the vote goes in your way, in your favor?
The short answer is yes to a degree, but I'll defer to Rob. But just for my frame of reference and to think clearly, I'm not sure I understood the first thing that Tim's message said. I mean, my understanding is that there will be a special town meeting to consider limited access from full public access. So if that's what his message said, and the intention is that there still will be a special town meeting for the purpose of considering the special limited access for this project, then that is the situation that we anticipated when we agreed to continue. Do you know if that's what he meant? If I'm being obtuse, I apologize, but from what he said, I'm not sure.
I don't think you're being obtuse, and I think I just don't understand it. I don't, and I've almost intentionally stayed out of what the subject of the town meeting review might be. I don't know what that process entails, and I don't know what goes into it. All I know is that Tim sent me an email saying that the town is not considering making the access road a public way at this time. Um, I don't know if that statement alone changes your intentions or your expectations with respect to town meeting. Um, but I think that if I had to read between the lines of what he's saying, is that there may not be enough time between now and town meeting to go through the necessary procedural requirements to get that issue on the agenda for town meeting. Now, I don't know, my understanding was that you and he may have been speaking offline about getting this done. I don't know if that's the case or not, but does that square with your understanding?
Peter, do you think that he means that the easement situation? So in lieu of making it a public way, they were going to grant us the easement to the, our property line?
Yeah, Rob, both for the board and Rob, in answer to your question, I can't imagine that what he means is suddenly this idea of a town meeting is out the window. I think what he means is what Rob just said, which is consistent with, his statements to us and intentions. We're aware that it's not being proposed that it become a public road, which does, or a public way, same difference, that does require more things. So I think he's just clarifying that, and that the intent is that it still be the subject of a town meeting for a limited access for the 728 Randolph Ave project. Simply would have said to us, well, gee, the idea of town meeting is off. So on that basis, I'm comfortable, Rob, not that I can guarantee it to you, but I'm comfortable, Rob, that what we talked about still makes sense, that there will be a town meeting, and we're agreeing to continue.
Sure. So just to go back, Mike, on your question about, so we had, my engineer has prepared an easement plan working with Tim. So they were basically going to give us an easement from Randolph Ave to the easternly most point of our property line. So basically limited from Randolph Ave all the way to the furthest most point of our property line. And the way that this would work, if we were granted the easement by town meeting, then I would release my engineers to design based on the town bylaws of a road, with all the roadway standards and all that stuff, level landing and all that stuff that we talked about already. The entrance would be very similar to the entrance of our driveway right now, because we're going to have to meet Mass DOT standards of radiuses and 30-foot radiuses and ADA and all that stuff. So there'd be a sufficient amount of design to upgrade the existing road at my cost to basically to the end of my property line, which is about 700 feet. The sidewalks, roadway, asphalt, all requirements of the town bylaws for roadway.
Okay.
But that would take about 30 days. I talked to Merrill. So once we have, if that gets approved, I would release my engineer, take about 30 days. So that's why Peter has, said, if the meeting's in sometime in December, we'd have to meet sometime maybe right after the meeting, and then maybe 30 days or 45 days thereafter to discuss the first meeting of the design of the road.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to open this up to the board. Does anybody have any questions about this whole process?
I don't have a question. I think that was helpful explanation as to where this is headed, but I think the devil is in the details here, and I think we should just see it and we can deliberate about it at that time, but it's helpful to see where this is headed.
Yep.
I have no further questions.
Okay. I don't have any questions either. I think that we should probably turn to Mr. Freeman's suggestion, which is that we choose two dates, one in December, which I think you said, Mr. Freeman, to discuss what happened at town meeting and come up with a plan for how to proceed with the revised application, and then another one in January for what purpose? For submission of the revised application materials?
Yeah, I think what we would hope to do, and I know it's within our bailiwick, and responsive to also what Mr. Mullen said, we absolutely understand and agree. The devil's in the details. So, what we would hope to do is be able to submit the plans at least a week ahead of time to have some review by Sean Reardon, and you folks, so that there could be a substantive hearing in January, which means it wouldn't be the beginning of January. It would be probably towards the end of January. And, same deal as always. If things are submitted too late and all of that, that's, our risk. We understand that. So, guessing about the time of town meeting, I can't imagine it would be right up against, the week of Christmas. At the risk of getting into silly season, I don't know. And again, I apologize. I don't know if the anticipated date is the first full week in December, which starts December 5th, or maybe the week of December 12th. But, if that's the case, then subject to you guys and, when you'll be around before the holidays, we could do a hearing either the 20th or 21st, a little before Christmas, or the following week, again, midweek as the first date, and then, roughly a month later into January.
I mean, is it too much to ask that we push this to after the new year, just because everybody's schedule is understandably, predictably crazy during those 2 weeks leading up to Christmas, and even the week after Christmas? Is that something you'd consider?
Yeah, I certainly understand. Yeah, I mean, I agree. The one in December is really just kind of sort of getting together, and hopefully, if there's a town meeting vote in favor, if the town meeting vote is negative, then we'd obviously have to get back on track to finish up, the present application. But I do understand what you're saying, Mike. And I don't think it's too much of a delay, Rob. We just would make sure we get the plans in and have a substantive hearing in January. So any thoughts on that, Rob?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we don't know the December date and with the holiday. So I would say the first or mid-January would be the best time to meet.
Yep. I'm fine with that. And if we do that, then, we don't need to figure out what the next date would be after January. Right. So seems to me either the week of January 16th to the week of January 23rd. It may be safer, Rob, for the sake of a week, to say the week of January 23rd, just to make sure, feeling positive, being optimistic that Deb will have a chance to do plans and submit them, as I had just said earlier, maybe with some time for the board and Sean to review.
Yeah, I know
at the minimum she'll be able to get some type of schematic going. So,
I know Tetra Tech would prefer to have at least 3 weeks to complete their review. So I think the week of the 23rd makes the most sense.
Yep.
So far, I'm pretty free that week.
For now.
Yeah.
Judy, are you okay with this plan?
I am on, and I am so sorry. I thought it was at 7 and I was driving home, and Catherine in my office, who's on the attendee side of this meeting, called me up and said, "Are you available to join the Milton meeting?" So I'm mortified. I'm so sorry. I pulled into the Notre Dame Academy parking lot in Hingham, and here I am.
I'm glad you pulled off the road, not into something.
Yeah, no, I'm here. That's fine. I just apologize to all of you. I'm sorry.
Not a problem at all. Any red flags with this approach from your perspective?
No, it sounds pretty reasonable to me.
Okay.
I mean, I just think it's in everybody's best interest.
Okay. Is that it? I think that might be it.
Yeah, if you have a motion to set the date, whatever date you pick for that week, and then I will tell you that, of course, I will then follow up after today with a, letter extending the hearing date, closure date, and I would do it for a few days after, whatever date you pick.
Crystal, do you have the calendar for next year yet? Are you able to reach that far out?
I do not. I don't see that there would be any issues besides maybe that Wednesday, because the Wednesdays have been rotating. I could.
Can we leave it open just someday that week, pending the town's calendar being issued, or do you want to set it for, say, the 24th?
Unfortunately, open meeting law and all that, we would have to set a specific date.
Yeah.
Or else new notices, add legal ads and notice to abutters. And then if it's changed, you need the 48 hours of posting. So even if it was a Tuesday or Wednesday, we couldn't just announce another date that week. So, yeah, I don't mean to put people on the spot. I'd hate to have to postpone it because it turns out meeting room isn't available, but I think I'd rather have a definite date than hope for the best.
All right. Why don't we just say the 24th? Crystal, I'll try to remember to follow up with you in a few weeks, just to make sure that gets scheduled and the notices go out.
Okay.
But if you could make a note of that as well.
Yeah, of course.
That would be great. And then we'll await your correspondence granting the extension, Peter.
Yep.
And I will make a motion to vote for the continuance of this hearing as discussed herein this evening. Do we need a second? Seconded by Mr. Gray.
Yeah, if somebody second.
I'll do it.
Seconded by Mr. Gray. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Good. I think that's it. Anything else?
I think this is all Zoom, right? So I think, forgive me, but I think you're supposed to do a roll call even for something as minor as the continuance.
I think that's true, Peter. I think you're right. Yeah, no, it's open meeting law protocol on Zoom, so you should do a roll call.
Shortcut all these things wherever I can.
I understand. I don't blame you.
Who does the roll call? Crystal?
Yes,
Oh, you
I'll
can
do
do
it.
it. Yeah, fine.
Okay. Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
He doesn't vote.
He doesn't
Mr.
vote.
Brown,
Just
I
me,
was-
yes.
just the board.
I did
Okay.
respond.
That's it.
Yes.
That's all you need.
We're good.
Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All
Super.
right, thanks.
All right. Thanks, bye, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Night.